Now don't get me wrong here, the cheesesteak is an amazing sandwich. But did you know that's not the best sandwich you're gonna get in Philly? But this roast pork sandwich is, and everyone in Philadelphia knows it. And if people like it better than a beloved cheesesteak, then you know this thing doesn't play around. And that's what we're gonna be making today. And to get started, we need to season the pork, which I got started yesterday. Now while the cheesesteak may be faster to make, this is much easier to execute. And here's how we prepare the meat. We've got a beautiful 4 to 5 pound boneless pork butt here. Pork shoulder will work as well. The flavor profile here is similar to Italian sausage. So I'm gonna create a spice mixture using a mortar and pestle. And I'm gonna add 2.5 tablespoons of whole fennel seed, 2 tablespoons of dried oregano, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of red chili flake, and 1 tablespoon of fresh cracked black pepper. And we're just gonna break up the fennel seed into the rest of the spices until it's mostly broken down, with some pieces of fennel still noticeable. And then I'm gonna take about 3/4 of that mixture and add it to a small bowl along with enough olive oil to create a paste that has a little bit of flow left to it. Now we can take our pork butt and season it generously with salt. I don't like adding salt to the spice mix. I like to add it separately so I can control the amount and make sure there's enough of it. Once you season it all over, take a small knife and start to puncture holes in the pork and then shove small cloves of garlic into those holes. Then we can start to spread that spice paste all around the pork butt. Try to get every inch covered in all of that flavor. And then we're going to place it in a deep baking dish or a hotel pan, wrap it up and refrigerate it overnight to marinate. And then we want to just save the rest of that spice mixture for later. Now that's just gonna marinate in the refrigerator overnight until we're ready to cook it tomorrow. Could you not marinate it, cook it right away? Sure. But trust me, this is gonna give it time for that flavor to permeate the meat. It's going to be a lot better. So we're gonna check back in tomorrow. Now the smell is already out of control. That seasoning has sort of adhered to the pork. And now to get it all started, it's really quite simple. So all I'm gonna do is to a baking dish. This is called a hotel pan. It's kind of nice to have in the house, but if you don't, a baking dish will be fine. I'm just gonna add some water. I'm not gonna pour it onto the pork so that all of those seasonings wash off. I'm just gonna add some moisture to the pan while we brown the outside of the pork. And I'm just gonna let this cook 2 hours, and what I'm looking for is just some nice caramelization, flavor development on the exterior of the pork. Then what we're gonna do is take this pork out of the baking sheet, and we're gonna finish it off on the stovetop in a Dutch oven. The first step, all we gotta do, get this pork with a little bit of water into the oven. So now I'm just gonna let that cook. We'll check back in about 2 hours. After about an hour, we're halfway through the roasting process. I wanna give the pork a rotate so it can brown evenly, and I'm gonna add a bit more water because the water I added previously has evaporated by now. Then back into the oven, and then after 2 hours of roasting, the pork should be nicely brown. Set it off to the side for a second while we get a Dutch oven on a medium-high heat, and we're gonna add a little bit of oil, and we're gonna take the remaining spice mixture and add it to that oil and toast it for about a minute. Then we're gonna add about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Get that working in the pan to get it toasted and cook the rawness out. Then we're gonna add the pork to the pan with all of its roasting juices and just break that tomato paste up into that broth. Then I'm gonna deglaze that roasting pan with a little bit of stock and then transfer those remnants into the Dutch oven. And then pour the rest of that stock in. About 3 or 4 cups should do. Then add a bay leaf, the rosemary and thyme, and then bring that mixture up to a boil, drop it down to a simmer, and on the lowest heat setting you have on the stove, cover it and let it cook for about 3 hours. After 3 hours, remove the lid, and if you can take some tongs and the pork just starts falling apart really easily, you're done. Pull the meat into large shreds, give it a taste, and adjust the seasoning. And just a heads up, if you can make it a day ahead, it's gonna be much better. And as you can see, it is so much easier than a cheesesteak. Traditionally, they'd leave it whole, cool it overnight, slice it, and reheat it in its juices, but some places do pull it like this, which is easier for home. Now, before we get any further, we gotta talk about gut health thanks to our sponsor today, Seed. Did you know that most over-the-counter probiotics that you may be taking are actually not doing anything at all? That's because probiotics are extremely fragile and can't survive the heat, the stomach acid, bile salts, and digestive enzymes on its journey through the body. And so it dies before it gets to the colon, and if probiotics are going to work properly, they must reach the colon alive. But DS1 by Seed is different than other probiotics on the market. Seed doesn't offer a probiotic, it offers a symbiotic. It has both a prebiotic and a probiotic. Both are important for the product to work as promised. cheesesteaks. DS1 is formulated with 24 clinically and scientifically studied broad-spectrum strains to support systematic health for whole-body benefits beyond the gut. But the real secret to Seed is how the capsule delivers the prebiotic and the probiotic to your body. It has a 2-in-1 nested ViaCap capsule system. It's a capsule in a capsule design. The outer capsule is a prebiotic that shields the probiotic from the GI tract and safeguards its viability through digestion, delivering an average of 100% of the probiotic starting dose to your colon. I've been taking it for a few months now. My skin feels great, my digestion feels great. I'm loving the product. So to get you guys started, Seed's offering you guys 20% off your first month's supply of DS1 by Seed when you use the code Not Another Cooking Show at checkout. So head on down to the link in the description and let's jump back into the recipe. All right, so that pork is looking beautiful. Now the rest of the ingredients are quite simple. Got a beautiful sesame seed Bastogne loaf. And this bread means something special to me, but that's a story for another time. You can get yourself some good sesame seed Italian bread. That's gonna be great for this. Then I got some sliced provolone cheese and then some broccoli rabe. So I'm gonna cook some broccoli rabe with some garlic and some olive oil. And that's gonna just go right on top of the pork sandwich. Almost the way that this broccoli rabe and some Italian sausage go really well together in a pasta. This pulled pork has all those Italian sausage flavors in there. We're just kind of serving it in a different medium. So same flavors work together here, and this is a classic combination. So we just want to roughly chop up the broccoli rabe into bite-sized pieces and then slice some garlic thin. And we're going to borrow a method from Chef Frank Prizanzano of Frank Restaurant and Little Frankie's in New York City. He teaches lots of methods on the internet, and he has one called lightning kale, and I figured it would work great for broccoli rabe. So we need a pot or a wide saute pan with a lid, and we want to get it really hot. And once it's hot, we want to add enough olive oil to coat the pan, and then add that garlic and begin to cook the garlic until it begins to lightly toast. Then we're going to add some red chili flake to the oil, and then very quickly we're going to dump that broccoli rabe into the pan and then immediately cover it with that lid, because there's going to be moisture in the broccoli rabe and it's going to create a violent reaction. Then we're going to lower the heat, shake the pan up, and that moisture and that oil and garlic is going to simultaneously saute the broccoli and all that garlic oil flavor while also flash steaming it, cooking it incredibly well and fast. After about a minute or two, the broccoli rabe should be shrunken by about half. We want to give it a taste, season it, and it should be ready to use. Now we're ready to bring everything over to the counter and assemble this masterpiece. The Bastogne loaf's usually going to be enough for 2 sandwiches, so I'm just going to cut it in half and then cut the coulo off, or the butt of the loaf. I tend to not love to keep those on for sandwiches. Then we're going to take some provolone cheese and place that inside the bread, and that's going to sort of act as a barrier to protect the bottom of the bread from the meat juices so it doesn't get soggy. And we're going to add that hot pork to the sandwich, and that juice is going to help melt that cheese a little bit, and then we're going to top that pork with a nice amount of the broccoli rabe. And it's really just the perfect sandwich. There's sharpness from the cheese, the beef is juicy and flavorful like sausage, and there's a garlicky bitterness from the greens that's delicious. It's just something else. This deserves a place in the Sandwich Hall of Fame. It's easier to make than a cheesesteak, and it's probably better. I'm gonna want you to take this pork and store it. Maybe put it in the freezer if you're not gonna use it right away. Save the broccoli rabe. We're gonna use these leftovers for another recipe soon. Recipe's gonna be linked down in the description. Give it a shot. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.